As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. That was definitely the case with the Wu-Tang Clan in its heyday. The members would often battle for spots on songs, and they would sharpen one another and push each other to become better rappers and better writers. And that spirit helped to propel the clan into one of the most recognizable pop culture entities globally. But despite being such a powerhouse in hip-hop, some of the Wu-Tang Clan members never really got it popping as solo artists. At the top of that list is probably U-God. He was born in Brooklyn but moved to Staten Island, where he met Capadonna and he became his beatboxer. Then that friendship sort of spiraled into U-God meeting the other clan members, and the rest is history, as they say. He has had his fair share of dope verses on clan songs, but he still seems to be the least loved by fans, generally speaking. And in this video, we'll explore some of the reasons for that, and we'll take a look at generally some of the things that shaped U-God's career and relationship with the clan. But before we proceed, a sub to the channel would be awesome. You can also like this video if you enjoy this content. Alright, back to U-God. First of all, and the most obvious issue, is that he's surrounded by lyrical monsters. When you're around guys like Jizza, Inspector Deck, Raekwon, Ghostface, and so on, it's really hard for you to stand out at all, because these are some of the most exceptional MCs in hip-hop. So it's not a surprise that U-God, or anybody for that matter, is overshadowed when standing next to some of the best lyricists that hip-hop has ever seen. However, I don't think lyricism is the end-all be-all. A rapper is also about the voice, the delivery, the flow, their technique, and a bunch of other intangibles. U-God definitely has the voice. His vocal tone is distinct and very powerful, even though his rhymes may not be super intricate. I personally love his verse from Triumph, maybe because he mentioned Mortal Kombat, and when the song came out, that was like my favorite game. I was a mega fan of that thing, like in the 90s. I also think his verse on Uzi, Pinky Ring, set the song off perfectly. And who can ever forget, "Raw, I'ma give it to ya with no trivia, like cocaine straight from Bolivia," on The Mystery of Chess Boxing. On the same note about lyricism, I mean, absolutely no disrespect to the dead, but I don't think that ODB was that great of a lyricist when you compare him to the rest of the clan as well. But his charisma, his energy, and just the general sense of chaotic delivery covered for the lack of lyricism in a way that I think U-God never managed. But at the end of the day, it's okay, because they're all individuals, and that's what makes the clan so lovable. You can love them as a unit, and you can love each one individually. You can't swap one of them out without losing something in the process. And I think U-God fit perfectly with the clan, despite his solo career not having gone maybe the same way others did. Another factor that affected his solo career was that U-God was one of the last members of the clan to release a solo album after the group blew up. He was part of the second tier of artists in the Wu, and you can watch my video on Inspector Deck for more on that, because I discussed that quite a bit. His solo debut was in 1999, which was 6 years after the clan's initial breakout. The album did very well commercially. It went gold, and you don't go gold by accident. So clearly people liked what he had to offer, or at the very least, they were curious. But it didn't have much input from the other clan members, and particularly RZA. The importance of RZA's production to the success of the clan cannot be overstated. He created the soundscape that to this very day many hip-hop enthusiasts such as myself still marvel at. He was very key to those guys blowing up the way they did. Now, out of the 15 tracks on U-God's debut project, only 3 were produced by RZA, and only Raekwon, Method Man, and Deck were featured on 2 songs. So he didn't have as much clan input as the earlier Wu-Tang solo members. It's just unfortunate that U-God felt like the delay affected his momentum. He's spoken about this in various interviews over the years, and he has had some rather unpleasant words for and about RZA, which leads us to the next point. There was a lot of internal strife within the clan. According to U-God, RZA is the one that perpetuated the idea that U-God is the weakest link in the group. That didn't sit very well as expected, and it played a part in the rift that formed between the two MCs later on in life, which ended up affecting the group as a whole. U-God is known for being pretty blunt, speaking his mind, and just being very straightforward about his thoughts over the years. And he has been probably the most publicly vocal member concerning RZA's leadership of the group. U-God went on to sue RZA for $2.5 million over royalties for the Once Upon a Time in Shaolin album in 2016. The rift was so bad that in recent years, U-God didn't appear in the Saga Continues album and in the first season of the fictionalized Hulu series called Wu-Tang Clan and American Saga. But the second season I think is out now, so I guess it's all good for now because U-God is in it. So I guess that was squashed. U-God has gone on to publicly bash RZA and his leadership of the clan and largely blamed him for the group's decline after their second album, Wu-Tang Forever, in 1997. That again just points to how critical RZA was to the clan's early success, and him not participating in U-God's album affected him. Another key factor that affected U-God's trajectory is the fact that his 2-year-old son got shot in 1994 as the group was initially blowing up. His son was used as a human shield in a shootout by someone. In his book titled Raw, U-God cited that the incident caused him to spiral into drug use and alcoholism, which then affected his relationship with the rest of the Wu, his creativity, and so on and so forth. He felt like he wasn't getting the support he needed from his brothers after such a traumatic incident. In the book, he went on to say,
"When I saw Dante in the ER, they had my baby boy cut wide open, operating on him. I was fucked up mentally. I got high, I got drunk. Riz and the others didn't make it any better, because they didn't give a fuck. In fact, they were giving me shit. I didn't get no mental support. They didn't send me any money. You know, basically, RZA thought giving me a check for the work I did, that was good enough. I didn't get any support from these dudes who I thought were my brothers. Matter of fact, they rubbed their fame and their wealth in my face even more. They made my life even more fucking rougher, much worse mentally."
We can only imagine what the ordeal must have been for him, and those events played their part in shaping his career. The 36 Chambers album is phenomenal, and it's one of the most influential albums in hip-hop. Unfortunately, U-God was not around for most of the recording of that project. He was in jail, and there is the possibility that if he had been around during the recording of the project and he had contributed to more material, maybe that would have raised his stock higher. But then that is simply conjecture and speculation. We don't know. It could be a factor. I'm just throwing it out there. A lot more can be said about U-God, but then if I was to discuss everything, this video would go on for a really long time, and we don't want that. In hindsight, I think his single greatest solo artistic work so far has not been in his music, but in literature. His book, which is titled Raw, is a brilliant piece of literature which I would encourage every Wu-Tang Clan fan and just generally a hip-hop fan to dive into. It has many great stories in it, and it helps you understand the man better than any of his music ever does. And the funny thing is that even U-God, who is often seen as the least loved member, was such an integral part of the group that when it didn't appear on the Saga Continues album, the group decided to release it under the name Wu-Tang instead of Wu-Tang Clan, which is a subtle but very important distinction. It just shows how much of a critical element he was to the group, and it was great that that solidarity was there to release the project under a different name because it didn't feel the same without a member who is alive and well but just didn't participate in the project. So while to the public it may sometimes seem like he wasn't that important when you look at only the musical appearances and the fact that he's not spoken of as highly as some of the members. We don't truly know what support he provided to the group that enabled it to become a success. Take that one piece out of the equation and you may find that the group may not have been what it was. But we can't go back and rewrite history. All of this, as I said, is conjecture and speculation. My final thought is that sometimes the people and the things that we think are not that important may sometimes make the biggest difference in our journey in life. And that may actually be the case with you, God.